Loneliness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. A subtle ache beneath the surface of your day. The pause before you answer, "I'm fine." It's easy to believe that loneliness is just the absence of people. But the truth, you can be surrounded by a crowd and still feel alone. Because loneliness isn't about proximity, it's about connection. And more than that, it's about understanding. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "If you're lonely when you're alone, you're in bad company." But loneliness is not just bad company. It's miscommunication between the soul and the world. It's when your inner world goes unheard, when your truths echo unanswered, when your presence isn't felt, even when it's right in front of someone. We often mistake loneliness as personal failure, as if needing to be seen is weakness. But the need to be known is not weakness. It's human. You were built for connection, not performance, not image. And yet, we've created a world that rewards masks more than honesty. We applaud filters. We polish every part of ourselves that might make others uncomfortable. And in that effort to appear okay, we vanish. We disconnect from our own truth, just to be accepted by someone else's illusion. That's not connection. That's loneliness wearing makeup. Real connection begins when we stop performing, when we risk being seen for who we are, not who we curate. But that kind of connection takes courage, because it starts with you, sitting quietly with the self you've been avoiding. Most people think loneliness means you need more people in your life. But the deepest loneliness often comes from being surrounded and still feeling unknown. There's a difference between presence and attention, between being liked and being understood. You might laugh in a group chat, post pictures, rack up hearts and fire emojis, and still feel hollow, because no one's seeing the real you. The poet David Whyte said, "The antidote to loneliness is not just company, it is intimacy. Not romantic intimacy, not sexual intimacy, soul intimacy. That kind of intimacy happens when you can sit with someone and say, 'Here is what hurts,' and they don't flinch. It happens when you can speak and know the other person isn't waiting to respond. They're listening to understand. And sometimes that intimacy doesn't come from others first. It starts with you. When was the last time you checked in with yourself? Not with productivity, not with goals, but with the human behind it all. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I need right now? What am I afraid to feel? Most of us are more comfortable helping others than helping ourselves, because facing your own loneliness takes honesty, and honesty is not always gentle. But loneliness isn't shameful. It's directional. It's the soul's way of saying, "Come back to me." There's a kind of loneliness that hits even when you're doing everything right. You go to work. You eat your meals. You laugh when expected. But something is missing. Something quiet. Something unspoken. And that quiet ache, it's not asking you to fix yourself. It's asking you to come home to your own presence, to find your own company. Not unbearable but sacred. There's beauty in solitude, but not when it's used as punishment. We often isolate as a form of self-protection. We tell ourselves, "I'm better off alone," but inside we're longing to be witnessed, to be met, to be known without having to perform. That kind of knowing doesn't happen in busyness. It happens in stillness. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote, "Silence is a source of great strength, not silence to escape. Silence to understand." In the silence you meet yourself again. You begin to see that your loneliness isn't always asking for people. Sometimes it's asking for truth, the truth that you've been pretending for too long, that you've been putting on smiles that don't belong to you, that you've been ignoring your own voice to keep someone else's approval. And maybe that's why the room feels so empty, because you haven't truly been in it. So what now? How do you begin to change something that feels so invisible? You start by remembering, loneliness is not your fault. It's not a weakness. It's a signal, a request for reconnection. To yourself, to others, to life. You don't need 100 friends. You need one moment of being fully seen. Sometimes that moment comes from you, sitting with your heart and saying, "I see you. I'm not going to abandon you again." And from that place of self-trust, the right connections begin to form. Not the ones that want your mask, the ones that want your soul. The world teaches you to hustle. But healing asks you to slow down, to breathe, to be. And when you do, loneliness begins to transform. It becomes spacious. It becomes sacred. It becomes a doorway back to yourself. And in that moment, even if you are alone, you are never lonely.